Welcome, and thank you for joining today's Welcome to the ISO conference. Before we begin, please ensure you have opened the WebEx participant and chat panels by using the associated icons located at the bottom of your screen. Note that all audio connections are muted at this time. If you require technical assistance, please send a chat to the event producer. With that, I will turn the conference over to Radha Madrigal, Lead Client Trainer. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Noreen. I appreciate that. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the California ISO. Today's quarterly webinar is scheduled for 2 hours and is intended to provide an introduction to an audience that comes from a broad spectrum, from energy sector newcomers to public officials and regulators to ISO veterans who may already be familiar with various ISO functions. My name is Radha Madrigal, and I am part of the Customer Readiness Department, and I will be facilitating today's discussion. On behalf of the ISO, thank you for joining us today. Let's take a look at the primary topics we will touch on during today's session. These topics are intended to be high level to give you a general understanding of the ISO and its functions, and you will be pointed to where you may find more information that is impactful for you. This webinar is being recorded, so if you would like to hear it again or if you think it would be helpful to others at your organization, it will be posted on our Learning Center webpage in approximately 3 to 5 business days, along with a copy of the slides that we're going through today. Those final slides will also contain some helpful links that relate to the material that we cover today. Along with this recorded webinar and slides are many other informational resources, including computer-based training courses and other initiative-related recorded webinars. I will show you how to find our Learning Center later in this presentation. There will be breaks during the discussion when the operator will open the phone lines for verbal questions. If you have questions throughout the presentation that you want to have addressed, you can also type your questions in the chat at any time, and the moderator will read it on your behalf during the Q&A section. If we can't answer your questions right away, we will research the topic and email a response to all of the participants. As you sign in and log into the webinar, I have your email address, so I will use that if I need to submit any follow-up information. Approximately 2/3 of the United States and more than half of Canada is broken up into 9 energy regions. Independent system operators, ISOs, or regional transmission operators, RTOs, are the federally regulated regional organizations that perform the same functions of coordinating, controlling, and monitoring the operation of the electrical power system, as well as acting as a marketplace for wholesale power for these regions. Similar to a stock exchange, an ISO never actually owns or takes title to the energy that is purchased and sold, and only acts as the mechanism to bring buyers and sellers of energy and energy services together. The California ISO is one of these entities and resides in the regional area known as the Western Interconnection. Though the ISOs and RTOs have different ways of operating their grids and markets, we all participate together in the ISO-RTO Council that is committed to work together to build a smarter and more efficient grid that is prepared to meet North American market and consumer needs. During this course, we will be focusing on the California ISO, or ISO, and its processes, but it is important to note that if you are doing work with other ISOs, being aware of the differences in how they all operate and the terminology used will be a great benefit in allowing your interaction to be more successful. Like many other ISOs, the California ISO is a nonprofit public benefit corporation. We are responsible for the constant and reliable flow of electricity for the health, safety, and welfare of consumers. But unlike a public utility, we are profit neutral, independent, and we do not serve end-use customers. We operate the transmission system, but not distribution lines. Those are operated and maintained by the utilities, who also perform maintenance on generators and transmission systems. Unlike the utilities, we do not own any transmission or generation assets, and we do not take ownership of the energy on the system. We do, however, coordinate the maintenance of these grid facilities to ensure sufficient resources are available to meet the needs of consumers. It is our resolve to facilitate a fair and transparent wholesale energy market, and we accomplish that through our policies, planning, and initiatives. We provide state-of-the-art technology that allows for enhanced situational awareness of the state of the bulk electric grid to help grid operators maintain reliability and keep the lights on. We have a comprehensive transmission planning process to accommodate the need for system expansion, as well as clearing the way for clean, green resources to access the grid. We actively engage with state and federal entities to support policy and regional goals for integration of more distributed and clean power products and improved coordination over larger geographical areas to enhance reliability and lower costs. The ISO is located in the Western Interconnection, which is represented here. In addition to being an ISO, we are also registered as a balancing authority. While all ISOs are balancing authorities, not all balancing authorities are ISOs. A balancing authority area, or BAA, is a combination or set of intertie points and resources, and the balancing authority is responsible for matching generation and load while maintaining the electric frequency of the grid. There are 39 separate BAs in the West, each with the same core functions of preparing the system for next day operations using resources within their boundaries, as well as taking into account imported energy from neighboring BAs and matching changing supply with changing demand in real time. The ISO is the largest BA in this region, handling an estimated 36% of the electric load in the Western Interconnection. Utilities, such as investor-owned utilities or public utilities, sit inside of the boundaries of a BAA, and their energy may be shared throughout the entire interconnection, enhancing reliability through greater resource pools, as well as helping achieve renewable generation targets and managing costs. As this energy is shared between BAAs, continual communication and accurate tracking between the BAs is critical to maintaining situational awareness of grid efficiency. Electronic tagging, or e-tagging, tracks the energy that is scheduled to flow between BAAs. E-tags contain data that allows us to model where energy is being produced and consumed and what transmission lines are being utilized for reliability and settlement purposes. On July 1st, the ISO became the official reliability coordinator of record for 16 electricity balancing authorities and transmission operators, primarily in California and one in Mexico. The cutover marks the first phase of a transition of power grid oversight responsibility from peak reliability to the ISO's service, RC West. It culminates work the ISO began in January 2018 to become a reliability coordinator for entities within its footprint and to offer the service to all balancing authorities and transmission operators in the West. The series of milestones are listed at the bottom of this slide. In the first operational phase, RC West officially took over RC services for balancing authorities and transmission for the majority of California and one entity in Mexico, Centro Nacional de Control de Energía, or CENACE. In early November, following additional certifications by the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, and the Western Electricity Coordinating Council, or WEC, the ISO anticipates that RC West will become the reliability coordinator for another 23 entities in the Western Interconnection, overseeing 87% of the load in the Western United States. In preparation for its November launch, RC West commenced shadow operations on September 4th, 2019 for the other 23 entities in the Western Interconnection. The ISO is on track to receive certification from NERC for the November expansion. A reliability coordinator has the highest level of authority and responsibility for the reliable operation of power grids and has wide visibility of bulk electric systems. With this new service, RC West will monitor the interconnected power grids in the West for compliance with federal and regional grid standards, authorize measures to prevent or mitigate system emergencies in day-ahead or real-time operations, and lead system restoration following major incidents. As an ISO and BA, we must adhere to strict oversight from key agencies, which include FERC, NERC, and WEC. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, is the independent U.S. federal entity that is the regulator of our market and, as such, has jurisdiction over interstate electricity sales, wholesale electric rates, natural gas and oil pipeline rates, reliability standards for the bulk power system, and so forth. FERC reviews the ISO's market rules and transmission rates to ensure they are just and reasonable and do not create undue preferences or discrimination under the Federal Power Act. The North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, is the international regulatory authority whose mission is to assure the reliability and security of the bulk power system in North America. NERC works with all stakeholders to develop and enforce standards for power system operation, physical and cybersecurity, and system operator preparedness, and then enforces compliance with those standards. They also work with the North American Energy Standards Board, or NASB, to develop standards which include standards for e-tagging. The Western Electricity Coordinating Council, or WEC, is a nonprofit corporation responsible for coordinating and promoting bulk electric system reliability in the geographic area known as the Western Interconnection, which we displayed on an earlier slide. Here you see a chart of how the ISO is structured, which includes the various teams that you would most likely interact with. Using our Board of Governors as a starting point, you can see the relationship between departments, committees, and regional entities. Our board is comprised of 5 members that each serve a staggered 3-year term and are appointed by the Governor of California. Our Department of Market Monitoring reports directly to our board and is responsible for ensuring that the market remains competitive by analyzing market trends and market initiatives, identifying potential anti-competitive market behavior or market inefficiencies, and enforcing FERC decisions. In order to provide transparency, the Department of Market Monitoring produces regular reports that are available on the ISO website. The main task of the Audit Committee is oversight of the ISO's budget and financial operations, while the Market Surveillance Committee provides the board with independent oversight of the markets. The EIM governing body is an ancillary to the Board of Governors and exercises delegated authority from the Board of Governors over Western Energy Imbalance Market rules. There is also a body of state regulators that includes representation from 8 states responsible for advising the EIM governing body and ISO board on matters of interest. There is also a regional issues forum that is the public vehicle for stakeholders to discuss EIM-related issues, including impacts to neighboring balancing authority areas. Our president and CEO is Steve Berberick. The Market and Infrastructure Development Team works on market design and the development of grid infrastructure. Market Quality and California Regulatory Affairs looks at market performance and integrating renewables into the market and interacts with California regulatory agencies. The Technology or IT division manages the market and system applications as well as all corporate applications. They also maintain the highest standard of cybersecurity critical to ensure the safety of grid and market operating systems as well as our customers. Our Operations division maintains reliability, runs the market, and manages the process from bid to settlement. The General Counsel division is our legal group that works on the ISO tariff and is the group that interacts with FERC, NERC, and WEC and other agencies when it comes to filing, compliance, and regulation. The External and Customer Affairs team interacts with customers both within the ISO footprint and at the regional level as well. These interactions cover everyday questions as well as forward-looking policies such as improvements to the ISO markets, EIM, and regional integration. Those of us on the Customer Readiness team are part of the External and Customer Affairs organization. With all of the functions of the ISO, it is imperative that these boards, committees, and departments work effectively together to serve the needs of our customers. Though we are not a state agency, we work with these agencies to implement state policy, perform studies, facilitate a fair and transparent wholesale electricity market, and drive innovation. The Air Resource Board's mission is to promote and protect public health, welfare, and ecological resources through the effective and efficient reduction of air pollutants, while recognizing and considering the effects on the state's economy. One of their main focuses is limiting greenhouse gas emissions through programs that utilize renewable energy credits, or RECs. Generators can purchase these RECs in order to offset their air emissions and continue to operate their facilities. The California Energy Commission, or CEC, is responsible for the certification of electrical generation facilities as eligible renewable energy resources and adopting regulations for the enforcement of the Renewable Portfolio Standard, or RPS. Those procurement requirements which are for the public-owned utilities. The RPS is currently set as 60% of total energy procurement from eligible renewable energy sources by 2030, and the ISO is active in working to help achieve this goal. We also work with the California Senate and Assembly to effect change in the energy industry. The Water Resources Control Board is focusing on once-through cooling issues. We have a number of generators in California that are close to the coast and use seawater to aid in the conversion process of condensing steam back into water, which can have a detrimental effect on marine habitats. The Water Resources Control Board is coordinating a long-term effort with resources to find alternative ways to cool their plants or to possibly retire them. The ISO works with the Public Utilities Commission on resource adequacy and generation procurement. The CPUC implements and administers RPS compliance rules for California's retail sellers of electricity, which include large and small investor-owned utilities, electric service providers, and community choice aggregators. The CPUC adopted a resource adequacy, or RA, policy framework in 2004 in order to establish and ensure the reliability of electric service in California. The CPUC established RA obligations applicable to all load-serving entities within the CPUC's jurisdiction. The Commission's RA program guides resource procurement and promotes infrastructure investment by requiring that load-serving entities procure capacity so that that capacity is available to the ISO when and where needed. The Integrated Resource Plan is an umbrella planning proceeding to consider all of the Commission's electric procurement policies and programs and ensure California has a safe, reliable, and cost-effective electricity supply. As I mentioned before, though we are not a state agency, we still want to help shape policies as they affect our customers and grid operations. So it is of great benefit for us to work closely with these entities inside California as well as with agencies outside of California. But we don't just work with regulatory agencies, oversight boards, and state agencies. Partnership with our stakeholders is critical to the success of the ISO. Stakeholder input is essential to ISO planning processes and for the success of new initiatives, from policy development to implementation. We encourage you to participate in our stakeholder engagement opportunities. On our website, under the Stay Informed tab, you will find information on our stakeholder processes. This page lists all of the initiatives we're working on at the ISO and provides all of the papers and meeting schedules for those initiatives should you be interested in participating in the discussion. We are committed to providing ample chances for stakeholder input into our market design, implementation, and infrastructure planning activities. The stakeholder process will shape the market design and policies through a series of proposals, meetings, and comment periods, including any changes to our tariff. A great deal of the documentation that we adhere to from a reliability and safety standpoint is defined by federal and regulatory standards. Our primary document is our tariff, which outlines the rates, terms, and conditions under which the ISO operates. The tariff is modified in collaboration with our stakeholders through our stakeholder process. Pertinent FERC rules are codified in our tariff, so any wholesale exchange of electricity in our markets comes under their purview. To view our tariff and associated filings in a more user-friendly way, you can visit our e-tariff viewer that offers convenient access to all ISO-related files that are part of FERC's e-tariff system. We also have business practice manuals, or BPMs. The rules in the tariff can be high-level at times, so our BPMs provide detailed rules, procedures, and examples for the administration, operation, planning, and accounting requirements of the California ISO and the market that are consistent with the ISO tariff. Adherence to the manuals is important for orderly operation of the ISO market. To ensure accuracy and clarity of the BPM, we have a systematic and publicly transparent change management process called our Proposed Revision Requests, or PRRs, which include monthly meetings to discuss submitted change requests. Operating procedures guide the critical step-by-step actions of control room tasks. Some of these procedures are posted on our website, while others are confidential. The ISO is registered with NERC as a balancing authority, a transmission operator, a transmission service provider, planning coordinator, market operator, and reliability coordinator. Together, these roles are grouped into three main categories: reliability, infrastructure planning, and market operations. Let's now take a look at each of these in a little more depth. As our industry moves into the future, we face challenges and competing priorities. Reliability is the foremost grid consideration, but it is not the only consideration. As more renewables and green power products are added into the power mix, as we expand our horizons, we face challenges related to under or oversupply and the need for more flexibility. When there is more electricity being generated than places to store or export it, or when there is too little supply, it could affect the reliability of the grid. The bottom line is that there are a lot of things we want to do, but there are cost, time, and impact considerations. Therefore, it is critical that we coordinate with several entities to plan the transmission needs of the ISO Balancing Authority area. Transmission planning at the ISO is an open and transparent process that actively engages stakeholder and public input and uses the best engineering analysis possible to determine short and long-term infrastructure needs of the ISO transmission grid, which is comprised of over 26,000 circuit miles, to maintain reliability and bring economic benefits to consumers. The ISO works closely with the CPUC and the CEC throughout the transmission planning process to identify and study reliability, policy-driven, and economically driven needs. Our transmission planning process begins annually and lasts 15 months. The process has 2 phases for project definition and evaluation, and a possible third for competitive solicitation, for selected projects. In phase 1, we are developing forward-looking assumptions. In phase 2, we are performing analysis and identifying transmission needs. If approved by the ISO board, in phase 3, we select proposals to build needed transmission projects. Just as we have a transmission planning process, we also have a robust generator interconnection process to help resources interconnect to the ISO grid. Our streamlined process helps resource owners understand steps to interconnecting their resource to the ISO grid by providing requirement compliance information, as well as an assigned interconnection specialist to walk the entity through the entire process from the beginning through commercial operations. Let's take a high-level look at this process. At a high level, the generator interconnection process starts when a resource submits a request to interconnect. This kicks off the generator interconnection study to determine reliability impacts to the system and identify any upgrades that need to be made. This study process takes just over 2 years to complete. After the studies and approval to move forward, interconnection agreements are signed, and then the new resource implementation process begins. Once this process is complete, the resource can begin participating in the market. The tariff allows 7 years for a project to reach its commercial operation date after the interconnection request is submitted. An important item to note is how critical it is to pay attention to deadline dates. It is important to keep all projects moving forward as many processes are linked and feed one another. One of the main tasks of the queue management specialist is to make sure the projects in the queue or process are moving along and interconnection customers are meeting their dates to ensure that generation resources can be interconnected in an efficient manner. An ISO typically has a competitive energy market, which most BAs do not have. As a registered market operator, we act as a marketplace for wholesale power, or basically a clearinghouse under the exclusive jurisdiction of the FERC, or the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The ISO wholesale energy market is comprised of distinct day-ahead and real-time processes. The energy products and services traded in our market allow us to meet reliability needs and serve load. The day-ahead energy market enables parties with bilateral agreements to schedule their contracted supply and demand into the market, offload excess supply in the form of energy or ancillary services, and secure pricing due to changes in load forecasts or for incremental changes in demand. Most demand is met in advance of the market through utility-owned or bilaterally procured resources. The ISO's real-time energy market has the hour-ahead scheduling process, which enables import and export resources to schedule their megawatts hourly, as well as a 15-minute market, or FMM, that allows variable energy resources, such as wind and solar, to submit energy forecasts and decremental bids closer to the financially binding interval, which increases bid accuracy. The 5-minute market is intended to meet the instantaneous demand. The ISO market offers a full network model that analyzes generation and transmission schedules submitted a day in advance to better manage or avoid real-time bottlenecks. The full network model is a representation of the generation and transmission in the entire Western Interconnection. With this model, we are able to see where there might be constraints on the electric grid. The full network model automatically runs every 15 minutes to reevaluate the impacts of actual or potential system changes. Energy is the actual electricity needed to meet the demand of the consumers. In general, much of the energy used within California is procured through bilateral contracts outside of the ISO market, in which supply is purchased under contract to meet demand. This energy needs to be scheduled into the ISO markets so that the ISO can use the information to monitor the physical energy flows on the system. In most cases, energy that is procured outside of the California ISO markets is submitted as a self-schedule. The day-ahead market enables suppliers to submit into the ISO markets energy not under contract and enables buyers to procure additional supply in the event they do not have enough under contract to meet their demand. We use demand forecasts that allow us to know how much energy will be needed in real time to meet load requirements. The ISO must project how much energy will be needed and how much will be available for the next day, the day after that, next week, next month, next year, and we do that through robust forecasting practices. The more accurate data we have, the more accurate the demand forecast. Therefore, the ISO is consistently working on improving load, wind, and solar forecasts in day ahead, hour ahead, and real time to keep the lights on and the costs lower for consumers. Now let's conduct a brief overview of the market's timeline. We have just talked about both the day-ahead and real-time markets, and this diagram shows the relationship between the two. As you can see, they are very similar. In the day-ahead market, bids are submitted, the market processes run, bids clear the market, and market results are published. There are a number of market applications involved in this process. When the day-ahead market is published, this triggers the opening of the real-time market. Bids are once again submitted along with base schedules from our EIM participants. Market processes run, bids clear the market, and dispatch orders are sent and received. The market is then settled in our post-market processes. Now let's break this down a little further. The day-ahead market opens 8 days before the trade date and closes at 10 a.m. the day before. The day-ahead market is made up of 3 market processes that run sequentially. First, the ISO runs a market power mitigation test. Bids that fail the test are revised to predetermined limits. These market power mitigation measures are intended to provide the means for the ISO to mitigate the market effects of any conduct that would substantially distort competitive outcomes in the ISO markets while avoiding unnecessary interference with competitive price signals. The second process is the integrated forward market, which establishes the generation needed to meet bid-in demand. Market prices set are based on bids. And last, the residual unit commitment process secures capacity from additional resources in order to meet the forecasted demand for the next day. These processes are co-optimized to produce a day-ahead schedule at least cost while meeting local reliability needs. The final step of the day-ahead market is to publish the market results at approximately 1300. Now we'll take a look at the real-time market timeline. There are three main timelines in the real-time market. Bids from all market participants and base schedules from the Energy Imbalance Market are submitted 75 minutes before each trade hour. These bids are used in the hourly processes for intertie transactions, the 15-minute market, and the real-time dispatch, which occurs every 5 minutes. The real-time market fine-tunes the flow of electricity to follow fluctuations in supply and demand. As we move into the real-time market at least 5 hours ahead, we look at our updated forecast and begin committing resources as necessary. From the time the day-ahead market schedules are posted to 75 minutes before the trade hour, bids can be submitted for the real-time market. The hour-ahead scheduling process is a process for scheduling energy and ancillary services based on the bids submitted by imports. Internal resources will receive advisory schedules for the next hour, and imports or exports will receive financially binding commitments. In our real-time unit commitment process, the ISO makes final decisions on resource commitments to adjust the day-ahead schedule. Inputs into the real-time market include the day-ahead results, master file, real-time system information, supplemental energy bids, outage information, and transmission line information. The market results generate real-time dispatches, ancillary service awards, and startup or shutdown instructions via our automated dispatch system. These instructions are sent every 5 minutes. Now, we've covered a lot of ground already, so before we begin talking about reliability, let's take a quick question break. Noreen, if you would, find out if there are any questions from any callers that we have joining us today.
To ask a question, please press #2 on your telephone keypad. You will hear a notification when your line is unmuted. At that time, please press #2. Once again, to ask a question, please press #2 on your telephone keypad. You will hear a notification when your line is unmuted. At that time, please state your question. We don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and move forward. From the perspective of reliability, the ISO is responsible for the constant and reliable flow of electricity for the health, safety, and welfare of consumers. Maintaining reliability is a balancing act that requires a lot of expertise and controlling many moving parts. So what is reliability? In short, it is all about keeping the lights on, and our system operations is at the forefront of this task. Our operators are responsible for maintaining the reliability of the grid by balancing supply and demand using various resource types. Operators are located in 2 control centers, which are continuously connected in real time through instant video conferencing capability. Both control rooms are operated 24/7, and although Folsom is the primary control room, our offices at Lincoln, at the control center there, share these duties so the entire operation of the grid can be transferred between control rooms at any time. There are multiple redundancies on all systems, providing one of the highest levels of dependability in computer system operations. As mentioned in the last slide, reliability of the electric grid is a primary focus. Electricity is produced, delivered, and consumed at nearly the speed of light. And throughout this process, the goal is to maintain grid frequency at 60 hertz in order to keep the system safe and keep the lights on. Electricity is produced by the supply, which consists of generation and imports. Electricity is delivered via transmission and distribution lines, and then consumed by the demand, which are the load and exports. Maintaining this balance between these two is similar to driving on a highway and trying to keep your car at 60 miles an hour. Like a gas pedal on a car, in order to maintain 60 hertz, you either increase or decrease generation to meet changes in demand. Because of its instantaneous nature, the ISO uses technology that takes a pulse of the system every few seconds, and our highly skilled and trained system operators constantly monitor multiple bits of data to be able to instantly react to fluctuating conditions such as weather changes and sudden supply shortfalls or surpluses. Currently, we have a total net capacity of over 71,000 megawatts and a maximum import capacity of just under 16,000 megawatts. Over half of the resources are powered by natural gas, and more than a quarter of the resources are powered by renewable sources, primarily wind and solar. System operators maintain reliability in real time, utilizing this diverse resource mix. Greater diversity of resource strengthens our ability to meet demand. However, it causes its own set of challenges when it comes to planning or forecasting availability, especially of renewables or variable energy resources such as wind and solar. There are a number of ways to participate in the ISO market, and any interactions where the ISO will provide services require entities to go through processes that consist of signing contracts and non-disclosure agreements, passing tests, and gaining access to applications as necessary. Depending on the resource capabilities, market participants can elect to bid into the energy and ancillary services markets or sell other electricity products. Physical supply and demand are bids for those resources that have the ability to provide or consume the energy needed on the bulk electric system. Convergence bids or bids for virtual supply or virtual demand are financial positions taken in the day-ahead market and liquidated in the real-time market. Convergence bidding is designed to reduce the average price differences between day-ahead and real-time, as well as the volatility of the difference between day-ahead and real-time prices. Ancillary services are considered capacity products and help maintain the reliability of the grid by ensuring that we have additional resources held back in reserves so that we have the ability to handle different types of contingency events, whether short-term regulation or operational needs that must be covered within a 10-minute window. Residual unit commitment is a way to ensure that the ISO procures enough capacity to meet the day-ahead forecast by bridging the gap between the physical resources that clear in the day-ahead market compared to the forecasted demand for that day. Flexible ramping products provide additional upward and downward flexible ramping capability to account for uncertainty due to demand and renewable forecasting errors in the real-time market. It ensures that some unloaded capacity is reserved to be dispatched as energy if needed. As we mentioned earlier, the ISO is now providing reliability coordination services for 16 electricity balancing authorities and transmission operators, primarily in California and one in Mexico. Congestion revenue rights are financial instruments made available through allocation and auction processes that enable rights holders to manage congestion cost of variability based on locational marginal pricing. These rights are acquired primarily for offsetting congestion costs that occur in the day-ahead market. Inter-SC trades are an optional accounting service that we offer to help facilitate financial transactions between our scheduling coordinators. Though there are many ways to interact with the ISO, only a scheduling coordinator is authorized to transact business directly with the ISO. A scheduling coordinator is an entity authorized by the ISO to buy and sell power in the ISO market. scheduling coordinators bid and schedule their supply into the market or submit demand bids. And then, based on the awards, energy flows across the transmission system and is distributed to the consumer by local utilities. If an entity chooses not to become a scheduling coordinator, it would need to contract the services of a certified scheduling coordinator to participate on their behalf. Scheduling coordinators may include convergence bidders, demand response providers, utility-owned generation, independent generators, energy imbalance market participants, and power marketers. Power marketers are entities that do not own or use generation, but act as a broker between power sellers and power buyers. There is a process that entities must complete in order to be qualified as a scheduling coordinator, including mandatory training, financial and testing requirements, as well as ongoing adherence to policies. For more information on becoming a scheduling coordinator, visit the ISO website or refer to the Scheduling Coordinator Certification and Termination BPM, Section 5.3, Certification Requirements. The Energy Imbalance Market, or EIM, is an extension of the ISO's real-time market offered to any balancing authority in the western area of North America. It provides a low-cost, low-risk option that balances load and resources automatically and economically. Full market members seamlessly participate in both the day-ahead and the real-time markets, while the Energy Imbalance Market, or EIM entities, only participate in the real-time market. Participants are able to submit bids, which will be utilized by the ISO to optimize energy transfer and generation output between all EIM participants in both 15- and 5-minute increments. The ISO operates the only EIM in the West and uses advanced ISO market systems which automatically choose low-cost resources to reliably meet consumer demand. We have several participants in the EIM market, with more planned to join in the coming years. Some key points to compare the difference between a non-EIM environment and an EIM environment if we look at the left portion of the slide first. In a non-EIM environment, each balancing authority is responsible for balancing load and resources within their own borders. There is the possibility for a limited pool of balancing resources. These entities may need to carry high levels of reserves. There is the possibility for economic efficiencies and increased costs to integrate solar and other renewable energy into their system. If we look on the right-hand side, when participating in an energy imbalance market, you have the ability to tap into a diversity of balancing resources that are shared across the participating balancing authority areas. There is the potential for decreased flexible reserves if each one of these BAs is now able to share amongst each other. There is more economic efficiency with regard to dispatching the right resource to serve the energy needs, and decreased cost to integrate renewable power into your system. Participation in the energy imbalance market still requires the balancing authority area to be responsible for maintaining and running their own BA. Now let's move into our post-market processes where we talk about the financial activity. Each market transaction is distinct and will be accounted for separately in a stack of coded transactions and associated prices based on market activity and data pulled from meters. Meter data is used for billable quantities to represent the energy generated or consumed during a settlement interval. Raw data is submitted and processed into settlement quality meter data, which is used in the settlements process. Metering is the direct measurement of a generator or load participant through telemetry, which allows the ISO to manage and monitor power generation in real time. The calculation, billing, and invoicing of charges and payments for market and transmission-related activities between market participants and the ISO is handled by our settlements process. Our day-ahead and real-time market are distinct markets which are settled financially in our post-market processes. One principle to keep in mind is that ISO market results are stacked like pancakes. What happens in the day-ahead stays in day-ahead. Real-time changes to schedules and their associated prices will be stacked separately for accounting purposes for both the 15-minute market and the 5-minute market. Entities can review all of these market transactions on their individual settlement statements, which we will talk about next. This is a diagram that simplifies the energy settlements for the day-ahead market and two real-time markets. In this example, what we're showing is that the resource has an initial day-ahead award of 120 megawatts, and then in real time there are additional incremental awards above and beyond that. When looking at the megawatt quantities, the 120 megawatts that were awarded in day-ahead will be paid at the day-ahead price. The additional 24 megawatts awarded during the FMM run will be paid at the FMM price, and the additional 12 megawatts on top of that, additionally dispatched in the 5-minute market, will be paid at the real-time dispatch or the 5-minute market price. This simplified example demonstrates that each transaction that occurs will be listed separately on the statement for each market as well as for each type of transaction. Of course, there is a lot more settlements, and each type of transaction is accounted for separately. Meter data is used for billable quantities to represent the energy that is generated or consumed during a settlement interval. Late meter data impacts settlement statements for the entire market. Therefore, we have rules of conduct in place to outline the specific requirements and expectations of market participants. The goal is to turn revenue quality meter data into settlement quality meter data, which can be submitted to the ISO for settlement processes. Meter data is collected in one of two ways. The meter can be directly polled by the ISO, or meter data can be sent in by the scheduling coordinator for the purpose of reporting the actual performance of the resource. Revenue quality meter data is required by the ISO for entities internal to the BA. A meter installation and certification process by ISO authorized meter inspectors takes place to ensure that meters are up to standard. Raw meter data is acquired directly by the ISO, and the goal is to turn that raw or revenue quality meter data into settlement quality meter data by putting it through our validation, estimation, and editing process. Settlement quality meter data is acceptable for entities external to the ISO BA. The metering timeline for data submission is on the next slide. An annual self-certification process is in place to ensure that metering is accurate. Settlements are the calculation, billing, and invoices of charges and payments for market and transmission-related activities between market participants and the ISO. The settlement cycle follows a specific timeline and processes for publication of statements, invoices, and payment advices, along with dispute submittals and payments. Day-ahead results and real-time results, along with the meter data, flow through the settlements process and output a settlement statement for each trade date. Formulas are associated with each charge code to determine how transactions will be settled. These calculations are broken down on the daily settlement statements and then collated into weekly invoices which identify charges to be remitted and payment advices that show what will be paid out. Each entity will receive a series of settlement statements by trade date. Initial settlement statements are only an estimate of the final results, and marginal adjustments may be needed to be made several months after the trade date. Invoices or payment advices for market transactions are published weekly on Wednesdays and include market transactions from trading days Monday through Sunday of the previous week. Invoices are due for payment by 10 a.m. on the following Tuesday. Payment advices are then dispersed as applicable at 2 p.m. that same Tuesday afternoon. As the ISO is a not-for-profit organization, all the money that comes into the market gets dispersed back out into the market, with the exception of our grid management charges, or GMC, that cover specified operating costs. This diagram depicts the daily settlement timeline, which shows how many times one trade date will be processed for adjustments and accurate calculation. The T on this chart indicates trade date, which means trade date plus 3 business days is the first estimated statement that is processed and produced by the reporting system. The next time this data will be processed for updates or changes will be at the T plus 12B, or 12 business days after the trade date, that milestone. That will include any meter data submitted by T plus 8B. There are also subsequent statements that are published periodically thereafter. There may or may not be adjustments in future settlement statements, but entities will only be responsible for the amount that changes from the previous settlement statement. For more information on what happens on each of these dates, visit the Settlements computer-based training on our Learning Center. A key point is that data must be submitted on time in order to allow the settlements process to proceed more quickly. Late meter data impacts settlement statements for the entire market. Therefore, we have rules of conduct in place to outline the specific requirements and expectations of market participants. The ISO has a payment calendar which keeps track of each calendar day and the settlement activity occurring on that date. We'll share a link to the payment calendar at the end of these slides. The GMC, or Grid Management Charge, is the vehicle through which the ISO recovers all of its annual administrative, operating, and capital costs from the entities that utilize the ISO's services. The GMC was implemented with stakeholders and FERC to provide a simplified and transparent rate design that increases clarity, predictability, and simplicity. Scheduling coordinators receive charges that apply to various activities on their settlement statement. In June of each year, we review the ISO current financial condition with stakeholders and gather their input for the budget process for the next calendar year. We follow up with a meeting in October to review and discuss our draft budget before finalizing it and requesting Board of Governors approval in December. We are nearing the end of our presentation, and we have allocated ample time to ask any questions that you have, so we're going to pause here again for a question break. Noreen, if you would, please see if there are any callers that have a question.
To ask a question, please press pound 2 on your telephone keypad. You will hear a notification when your line is unmuted. At that time, please state your question. Once again, please press pound 2 on your telephone keypad if you wish to ask a question. Yeah, at this time, we don't have any questions.
Okay, I will move forward. Now we're going to take a few moments to talk about how you can monitor and participate in the ISO. On the ISO's webpage, www.caiso.com, there are a number of tabs along the top of the home page, and we would like to highlight a few for you here. If you hover over the About Us tab, you'll find more information about the ISO, along with further background of our history. If you hover over the Participate tab, you can find additional information about participating as a scheduling coordinator, participating as part of an energy imbalance market participant, And you can also find our Learning Center off of the Participate tab. I have another slide about our Learning Center coming up in just a few. If you hover over the Stay Informed tab of the ISO website, that's where you can find more information about all of our initiatives, as well as where you can sign up for our daily briefing. The Planning tab covers information related to transmission planning and generator interconnection. Our Market and Operations tab, you'll be able to find settlements information there, as well as all of our reports. And if you hover over the Rules tab, you'll find our tariffs, operating procedures, and business practice manuals. In the middle of the screen, there's a section called Today's Outlook, which provides real-time information. Here we publish the current system demand as well as today's forecasted peak. And if you click on that section, it will take you to a page that contains graphs of the current day's load and available resources. With regards to renewables, you can access the monthly renewables performance report if you go to that Market and Operations tab and hover over the Reports and Bulletins section and click into there. You'll be able to access this renewables report, which offers a broad menu of metrics related to renewable energy, net demand, oversupply, curtailments, reliability, and negative pricing. For more information on the current state of the energy imbalance market and how it will continue to evolve, please visit our Western EIM website. This site provides a great deal of resource material, including computer-based training modules that you can view. You'll also find the list of active and pending participants in the energy imbalance market. Reliability is an essential element of operating the electric grid. As I mentioned earlier, the ISO has newly become a Reliability Coordinator, or RC, and is offering these services to other balancing authorities in the Western United States. Visit the RC West page on our website for more information about the services provided by RC West. This page tracks the implementation milestones, provides relevant information about the current progress, and includes a list of the current and pending RC West entities. After this presentation, when we post these slides to the Learning Center, you will be able to navigate to this page of the slides and click on these two different links. We have two different links that give you a short, brief overview about system operations and grid operations. To hear more about that directly from our operators, you can check out these interviews, which will link you to a YouTube video. On our Open Access Same Time Information System, or OASIS, you will find real-time data related to the ISO transmission system and its market, such as system demand forecasts, transmission outage and capacity status, market pricing, and market results data. While some information about resources is proprietary, there is a great deal of information available to the public, and this OASIS application allows for that data to be pulled and used by any interested entity. Here's a little bit more about the Today's Outlook page I mentioned earlier. Today's Outlook is our most visited public web page with over 200,000 visitors a year. It allows viewers to quickly see changing patterns of supply and demand, forecasted and actual peaks, energy supplies by resource type, real-time energy prices, and renewable energy production. The updated net load graph depicts daily system ramps reflecting changes occurring on the power supply system as renewables become the dominant supply resource. This page is available by clicking on the Today's Outlook section on the home page of the ISO website. You can also find this up-to-date information about what is happening on the grid and at the ISO using our ISO Today app, which is available through Google Play or the Apple Store. We also have business practice manuals, or BPMs. The rules in the tariff can be high level at times. So in the BPMs and associated configuration guides, we provide additional information about how those rules are applied. Business practice manuals provide detailed rules, procedures, and examples for the administration, operation, planning, and accounting requirements of the California ISO and the market that are consistent with the ISO tariff. Adherence to the manuals is important for orderly operation of the ISO market. Our systematic and publicly transparent change management process ensures the consideration of all relevant information when modifying the manuals. The change management process uses a system available through the ISO public website that provides a way to propose BPM changes, comment on open change requests, and track proposed change requests. The change management process begins when the ISO or a stakeholder submits a web-based proposed revision request, or PRR. After an ISO review, PRRs are posted to the website, which triggers a stakeholder review and comment period. ISO recommendations are discussed in monthly meetings with stakeholders prior to any changes being made. There is a lot happening in the ISO and in the industry in general. So to stay up to date, sign up today for the ISO's daily briefing, which is a once-a-day summary email of announcements. The daily briefing also provides a comprehensive summary of ISO news and activities, including announcements of upcoming calendar events, regulatory filings, and any new or enhanced features added to the ISO website. With California at the vanguard of the transition to renewable energy, all the world's eyes are on the ISO's innovation, technology, and strategies for greening the grid. Public affairs and media relations are at the heart of the ISO's mission to inform, educate, and to promote the clean, reliable electric system and efficient market of the future. Here on this slide, you'll see the media hotline number and email address to reach out to our media relations team should you have the need to do so. In order to enhance customer service and simplify doing business with the ISO, we provide a comprehensive website for IT developers that consolidates the technical documentation developers need for the ISO's application programming interfaces, or APIs, which allow developers to find connectivity instructions on this page as well. Also, interface definition files, sample code, links, and frequently asked questions, along with getting started guides, and a glossary of acronyms and technical terminology common in our specification documents. In order to access the ISO developer site, you need to sign up in order to use it and register. We here at the ISO are committed to providing our customers with a broad menu of high-quality training courses on the ISO market functionality, as well as individual market applications. These courses are organized into areas of focus, or tracks, that are designed to be an industry resource for market participants and the general public to learn about electric grids and markets and the ISO's role in the electric system. We are continuing to evolve our training programs and enhance our training materials to better meet the various levels of experience, technical levels, and needs of our customers, and to make it a more user-friendly experience. We are creating more computer-based training and learning bursts to break down some of these complicated subjects into bite-sized, manageable pieces, so please keep an eye on this page to find updated content and learning opportunities. These next few pages are going to be links that you are going to be able to access to refer for additional follow-up information as you have been reviewing these slides. We call this the toolkit that is at the end of the presentation, and that covers these slides here. We also have included helpful links to the transmission planning process and generator interconnection process on this slide here. In addition, there are links to the materials presented at our Resource Interconnection Fair, which is an educational forum intended to help participants understand the processes involved in connecting resources to the California ISO grid. The format provides an opportunity to learn about the various aspects of resource interconnection from initiating a new interconnection request through the commercial operation. We will post this presentation to our Learning Center under the Markets and Operations Path link. This presentation and the embedded links will act as your toolkit to help you find more information on each topic. In a few more days, a recording of today's webinar will be posted along with these slides if you're interested in listening to any parts again, or if you would like to bring it to the attention of others in your organization. Before we close for the day, Noreen, if you would, let's take a final question break on this slide and let us know if we have any callers who have questions on what we've covered so far today.
Once again, to ask a question, please press #2 on your telephone keypad. We do have a question. Caller, please go ahead.
Are you there, caller? Perhaps your line is muted?
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, yeah, I was definitely muted. So I see if I recall, the last meter data settlement was T plus 172 business days. Is that correct?
Let me flip back to that slide just to make sure I am giving you the right information here. Okay, so on that slide, and I'll go ahead and move back to it even though it'll take us just a few clicks so that we can all look at what we're talking about. So at T plus 48B is the last date in order to submit accurate and complete meter data without any penalties.
Okay.
That is the final deadline. You do have up until T plus 172B. If you discover any discrepancies or errors, those need to be submitted by T plus 172B, but that will open you up to being subject to rules of conduct. In other words, it will still be late, but it can be included by that final date to be settled on those additional incremental settlement statements at 9 months, 18 months, 33 months, and so forth. But the final deadline for submitting actual meter data is T plus 48.
Okay, great. So from a settlements perspective, I wouldn't expect to see revised meter data past the T55 business day, generally speaking.
You should not unless there was an error discovered by one of our participants and they needed to submit late meter data. They have the opportunity by T plus 172B to have that in there adjusted.
Okay. And if that were to occur, would CAISO alert other market participants if there's been any kind of change? I'm not sure if that would be relevant or not. I'm just trying to get an understanding.
No, your alert would come in the form of an additional settlement statement at one of those future dates.
Okay. Thank you.
So between T plus 55B, it would go over to T plus 9 months.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Any other callers, Noreen?
We don't have any other questions.
All right, I'm going to flip back to our closing slide. Here we are at the end. If you have any additional questions on anything presented here today or where to find more information, please email them to customertraining@CAISO.com. For those who signed in to today's webinar, you will be receiving an email from the same email address, customertraining@CAISO.com, that will include a link to a survey. We highly encourage you to take a few minutes to complete the survey to let us know how we can better serve your training needs. This concludes our welcome session today. Thank you for your participation. We hope you found it useful and informative. We hope you have a great day.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using AT&T when conferencing enhanced. You may now disconnect.